Hi everybody, welcome back to Dune Awakening, and in this video I want to talk to people who are probably thinking about getting the game but want to know whether it's really a survival game and what survival mechanics it uses. So Dune Awakening is set in the Dune universe, a science fiction universe set a long time in the future, where it's this strange mix of high science. So you've got things like energy shields and energy weapons and suspensor belts that let you float around, and spaceships and things like that, but also really low tech like knives and worms in the ground. And the idea is that this planet we're on, Dune, is incredibly important to this big empire, because here what you can harvest is spice, and spice is this essential drug that kind of keeps the empire going through light travel, and everybody uses it. And we've ended up here for some reason. I'm not going to spoil the story, but we're here and we have to survive and follow the story through. So survival, let's have a look. So the first thing is the heat and the sun. So you see this desert here, so there's lots of these rocky places, and we're in shadow, you'll notice here, and that's very important. But if we go out onto the sand, there's a couple of things we've got to watch out for. One is attracting a worm, but also, if you see, what you should see in a second is, see that the sunstroke meters just appeared. So you've got to be very careful when you're out in the sun that you don't get sunstroke. But what happens is, when that goes to the top, it'll then go red, and you start kind of taking damage from the heat. Also, in these kind of dune areas that you see here, these open dunes, this is where the big sandworms are. I mean, they're huge, they're absolutely massive. You know, they're the size, well, the small ones are the size of like a few railway carriages put together. The big ones are like massive. Imagine a massive railway carriage, but it's a worm. Massive railway train with all the carriage on, but it's a worm, and it's sort of burrowing underneath the sand, and it comes up to investigate anything that moves, and then eats them, which is really bad. So what that relates to is the fact that if your character dies, it's not that bad in terms of what happens if you die sort of hydration, or you fall off a rock, or you get shot. You'll return to a spawn point. There'll be something like a checkpoint that you've probably passed as you've been wandering around, or you'll return to your base, or if you've put down you can craft these spawn. In fact, I'm not quite sure what they call them. Let's have a look in my backpack. What do we call them? A respawn beacon. So you can craft a respawn beacon, you can place that, and you'll, depending on how you died, you'll lose some of the stuff that you had in your backpack and some of the weapons, but you'll keep sort of your equipment that you've got on, and then you can go and find your backpack and recover it all, unless you get eaten by a worm. If you get eaten by a worm in the desert, you lose all the stuff that's on you, as you'd expect, because it's in the worm, so you can't go and get the backpack back. Also, if you get caught out in the open when there's a sandstorm comes through, and these are more like sand hurricanes, where it's basically, it strips the flesh. All right, there goes a worm. You see that? There'd be a worm underneath the ground there, so if we went out and jumped up and down on the sand, it would come and eat us. And the sandstorms, you know, they'll strip the flesh off your bones. So that's kind of the environment you're dealing with. You're also dealing with, it's all hydration, and the radiation is things that's damaging. Right? Okay, so it's starting to get dark now, and the beauty is, once it starts to get dark, you don't have to worry about the sticking to the shadows as much. As you see, I'm just picking up a few things here. Now, what I want to do, you probably see there's a guy over there. There's just one guy. So we're going to go over and we're going to kill him, because we're going to harvest an important resource off him, and that is blood. Because if you look in the bottom left hand corner, these are kind of the stats I'm managing. So you've got my health, the red one, you've got radiation and stamina on the green and yellow buttons, and then you've got hydration. So the thicker blue line, that's the water that's in my body. So that's my general character's hydration. So I'm 2/3 full. And then the one next to it is the water that's in my still suit. So as part of the game, you'll get a still suit. And the still suit is this special garment that you wear that, as you're sweating and breathing, it captures that moisture. So if I press left on my D-pad, I can drink a bit. And that can kind of keep you going. Because out in the open desert, or out in the desert where you're moving from sort of rock formation to rock formation, and over the open desert, you know, you're constantly losing hydration, and so you get more water from. I'm going to show you the way that we do it in a second. But if you want to be able to operate independently, where you're not worrying about water all the time and getting it from dew flowers, which will only give you a little bit of water, you need to make your character more resilient in terms of water discipline, which is a still suit and stuff like that. But what I want to do is we're just going to kill this guy. So we've killed this guy, and then you see that little icon. So one of the things you get is this blood extractor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this blood extractor to suck the blood out of his body. We might as well take the darts he's got on. So now if we look in my backpack, we can see I've got these blood bags, these blood sacks that have got blood in them. And what I could do is I could drink these, and that would hydrate me. So then you'd see my hydration meter go up. However, that would affect my health. My health would get a nerf, so I wouldn't be as healthy, because it's not a great thing to do. I should have mentioned as well earlier, if you get sunstroke, your health gets a nerf. But what we can do now is, if we make our way back over here to my base. Now these little things that are popping up, you'll see these are about resources. So a lot of times it's about picking up resources, and we use resources to craft things and build things and build weapons and build knives. These are dew flowers, so when you're really desperate at the beginning of the game, or even later on in the game if you've been away from your base for a while, you can, when you get down to a third of your hydration left, you can drink the water from these. But that's it, you can only go up to a third hydration. Just need to be careful here, because enemies do respawn relatively quickly in these areas, so you can just come around the corner. There we go. Whoop, there's two of them. Wait. A bit of a retreat. Let's get our knife out. Come on then. Ooh, this one's good. They're dead. Let's use a use a heal kit to bandage up. But luckily that's given us another victim for more blood. And if you're thinking about, well, what's the PvE, PvP part of this game, you can totally avoid player versus player PvP if you want to. You can just go PvE. And the NPCs aren't that challenging in this sort of situation. There we go. Let's go and get his blood. But when there's a lot of them, when you're going after the bases where there's a lot of them, they are challenging, and you do have to back off. And then what you find is some of them have shields as well. Okay, so we killed that person, and what we'll do, let me just show you now. Let's get my cutter ray out, and let's just get some rock. Let's get some iron ore, copper ore from this rock. So what we can do is we can scan the rock, and this will show us the best way to use our cutter ray. You don't have to do it this way, but you get more resources if you do things this way. So we picked all that stuff up. Let's pick up some granite just to show you. Okay, so we've got some good stuff. We're keeping an eye on our health. We probably need to take another heal kit. Our hydration isn't too bad. We can take a sip from our water that's in our still suit, and let's go over to the base. So this base is made from resources that I've found as I've been going along, and a big part of this game is, you know, moving from area to area, and you're going to have different bases in different places. You're going to dismantle one base and then go somewhere and set up a new base. It's a little bit dark in here, but so this is the blood purifier. So let's have a look at this. This is something you'll find schematic throughout the game, and once you've got a schematic, you can then either build the thing yourself if it's fairly simple, or you may well need a fabricator or a special type of fabricator to do it. As you can see, I've got these blood packs. This one's got blood in it, so I deposit blood like this. And then as you can see, it's actually full of water already, this, but I'll deposit all the blood to get rid of it. So what I can then do now, what I could now is I could extract water, because I've got a Litajon, which is the water carrier, but that's full. I haven't used that yet. But let's take a drink. There we go. So kind of the way that you're managing your hydration, when you're doing busy work, so around your base, you tend to return to your water, your blood purifier quite often, and keep drinking water, because what you want to do is you want your still suit to fill up, because it slowly fills up as you're wandering around and doing stuff, and you want your hydration to be full, and then you want to have your bottle of water in your backpack to be full. And at that point, you're like, right, okay, right, what are we going to do? You're going to jump on your special sand bike thing you have, or you're going to go on foot, and you're going to go off and chase some icons and do some story quests or side quests, or just generally do a little bit of exploration. But while you're doing that, while you're out in the wild, you've really got to be thinking about what is my hydration, and maybe you'll get some blood packs, so maybe you'll start drinking blood, to keep yourself hydrated that way, but that does a damage to your health, so you won't be as effective in combat. All the time you're doing this sort of stuff as well, all the things that you are using are wearing out. So this is another sort of survival mechanic for the game. So as you're using your guns, they're wearing out. As you're using these tools, they're all wearing out. So at some point, you've either got to go and buy another one from a trader, or when you get the correct tools, you can maybe repair your gun, or you've got to make another gun. Certain things, for example, like this Lita John, although I've got the schematic to make it, I can only make one, so you've got to get, like, I think they call it an Empire credit to be able to make another one, because they're very special items that you can't keep making them, and I guess selling them and something like that. So this is all the crafting sort of stuff that I can make as a person. Some of the stuff I can and can't make depending on what resources I've got in my backpack. Research. As you find schematics, you can research things, and then once you've researched them, you then have the ability to make them. And then we have our skill trees. So there's lots of skill trees. I'm a trooper, so I'm sort of working on things like weapon skills and grenade skills. And we have different abilities that we can do as well. But there's lots of different ways you can follow this as well. In fact, let's just go here. So we've got you could be a mentat, we've got stealth stuff, we've got scientist stuff. There's loads of different things you can go through. It's really very in-depth as well. Then we've got our story that we're following. So there's the main story that you're following, which is kind of getting you different equipment and different skills, and there's side quests and there's history quests, loads of real stuff to follow on. But of course you can just wander around and explore. And then say we go over to something like what we got. Let's turn this thing on. Let's enable here. And we use this. So this is a fabricator. So a fabricator can kind of make all the things that we talked about, that I can make with my hands, but it also can make lots of different things as well, like bits for vehicles and stuff. So that's all very cool. What else have we got around here? This is a refinery. So what I would do is I would put my copper ore into here, and that would give me copper ingots, which I then take over here to make stuff with. This is a recycler, so I can put stuff in here, then I get basic resources out. We've got some storage here. This sub-thief console, what that does is that claims a piece of land for me. So in fact, if we come away from this and I get out my build tool, let's see. Here's my build. Where's my build tool? That's my construction tool. Have I got that activated? I don't think I have. Right, okay, so let's put that down there. Right, okay, so if I equip my that's my cutter ray construction tool, there we go. So as you can see, if I get my construction tool out, there we go. This kind of then gives me the area that I can build in. So if you see this area here, and that is claimed by that sub-thief sort of thing. So that's claiming this little bit of Arrakis for me. And then we can work through, it kind of looks a bit like Fortnite, doesn't it? The way that you can add stuff. We've got sort of walls. Now I've only got the basic building thing here. But as you get better building tools, there's loads of different... The building is absolutely amazing in this game. You may well have seen some stuff already. And all of this uses resources, and all of this wears out as well. So you've got to constantly go around and finding stuff. And if you, for example, build one of the motorbike things, you've got to protect it, or any vehicle, you've got to protect it, because if a sandstorm comes over, it's going to get wrecked really quickly, because that's kind of what will happen. Let's have another quick look at the map. So this is the Hagar Basin. This is the bit that I've opened up, but the map goes all the way up here and all the way around here. So there's loads and loads of things to look at and explore. And then if we zoom in, these are the places I've found already. And you can go to these places to get different resources as well. So for example, over here, there's a big crash ship. And so you'll get some really posh bits in there that you might need for building vehicles. And there's... in here, this is a... in fact, I think what I've done... Yeah, in here, I've turned it off, but in here there's a botanical testing station, which has lots of leftover bits from the Empire from a while ago, so you find some really good stuff in there for doing stuff that way. And of course, when you're doing this sort of exploration, you've got to look at the kit you've got. How is my hydration? How have I got water in my backpack? Have I got a bottle of water? How is my still suit? Is it full of water? How are my weapons looking? You know, are they worn out? Do they need repairing? Do I need to craft some stuff? How is the sand bike I've got? Does it need repairing? Have I got enough fuel? Do I need to process some fuel? Where am I going to get the repair bits for? Do I need some fuel, in inverted comma marks, for the welding torch I've got? All of these things you're thinking about that all bring you back to that survival mechanic of having to manage resources, and you're not just following the story along, for the fun of it like you would with an adventure game. You've got to kind of do all the busy work that goes along with it as well. And it's all done very, very well. I've put several hours into the game already. I'm a massive Dune fan and was very worried about how they would deal with the subject, how they would fit you into the Dune canon, if you like. And they do it in a clever way. So you're not directly involved in the events in the Dune films and the Dune books, but they involve you in a clever way. I kind of like to think of what you're doing in Dune Awakening at the beginning is a bit like what happened to Gurney Halleck after the Battle of Arrakis, a Battle of Arrakeen. When the Harkonnens and the Soldakor come down and the Atreides get defeated and Gurney Halleck disappears. And then he meets up with Paul, many years later, and Gurney Halleck's been with the smugglers in the deep desert. Well, that's kind of what you're doing at the moment, which I think is really, really cool. And it seems to be paying an awful lot of respect to the books and the films as well, which was what I was worried about. I was thinking they're just gonna, how are they gonna do that? So I've been very happy. And being a DayZ fan, I'm very happy about the survival aspects. And I'll just finish off with the death aspect as well, because obviously when you have these sorts of systems, when you've got all this crafting and you've got all this research and you've got all these skills, you don't really want permadeath. And there isn't permadeath in this game. As you're in a world and you're on a server, this particular character, even when you die, you're not going to lose all the things you've learnt, or even all the gear you've got as well. What's going to happen is you're going to end up spawned back at your base or at a checkpoint, and you're kind of good to go as well, as you'd expect, because in a game like DayZ, where there aren't any soft skills that you learn, it's only gear. When you die, you just lose your gear, don't you? But that's a little bit different in this game. It's a lot more forgiving that way, which I think you have to be when the game is a lot more complex, a lot more RPG-like. So there we go. I've probably missed whole chunks out about why this is a survival game. And if I have, please, people who can correct me, make a comment down below. But maybe you found this useful. If you're a survival game fan, this is definitely worth diving into. If you're a Dune fan, this is definitely diving into. And I'm looking forward to putting many hundreds of hours into this game over the year ahead. Anyway, that's enough for me. That's enough of my waffling. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And I will, of course, see you again soon.